Hey guys, Smitty here with Just Piddlin Barbecue. Today we're going to do the select brisket on the Timberline 850. Stay tuned. Alright guys, this is a select brisket. This is the first time that I'm doing a select brisket. But I was curious to see how it was going to turn out. We're going to give it a shot and see if we can make it turn out as good as some of the other ones that I've done. So let's get started. Now, because it's a select brisket and the fat content, the marbling is minimal on this one, we're going to try to pump up the flavors even more than I have in the past with the other better quality briskets. And we're going to start off with an injection. Now, I'm making my own injection. There's plenty of injections that you can purchase out there on the market that are great. This is just beef stock, and I'm adding a little bit of the fix from Whiskey Bent Barbecue. And I'm just going to mix that in really well, and then we're going to put it in this injector. All right, now we're going to inject the flat part first, and we're just going to go in here and get some good pumps in here. You can see it pumping up a little bit, about every inch. And we're just going to make ourselves a little bit of a grid. And then we're going to come back over here about an inch down, and then we're going to go about every inch. And come back down about another inch or so. Get it again, and we're just going to keep doing this until we get this flat covered. Now that gets this side of the flat. Now while we're here though, we're going to go ahead and pump some up on the underside of this point meat. Get some good flavors down in there as well. And then we're going to flip it over and get the other side. Now I will say that there was considerable trimming on this select brisket. I like to trim more than maybe most, but my theory is if I'm not going to eat it, I want to go ahead and trim it. So, but you trim yours however you like yours. Now we've got it injected with our beef stock and our rub from Whiskey Bent Barbecue. Now we're going to start layering flavors on with our rubs, and today I'm doing 3 different rubs. The first rub that I'm going to lay down is the old-fashioned rub from Whiskey Bent Barbecue. We really want to get a lot of flavors in on this with the lack of marbling that we have. And so I'm going to go on with 3 different layers and layer those flavors in here. Get in all the cracks and crevices. Cover all the sides. Make sure you get the ends. Another thing that I made note of is the fact that this flat part is a little bit uneven as far as thickness goes. It's a little bit thicker on this part than it is on this part, so I want to keep an eye on this part and make sure that we don't get it dried out. Now while I'm on this side, I'm going to go ahead and add all 3 layers so that when I flip it over, I don't have to flip it back. So the next layer is going to be the fix from Whiskey Bent Barbecue. We're going to go on with that. Now this has a lot more garlic in it, a lot finer rub, more of a dust I would call it. But again, we're talking about layering flavors in on this brisket, getting as much flavors as possible. Make sure you get all the sides. And then lastly, you've heard me say it before with these briskets, I'm going in with the grind coffee rub from Whiskey Bent. I love it. And this stuff's already tacking up already. Now, I will tell you this, because you're going to see it's a lot coarser than the grind usually is. And so when I looked at my cabinet, I only had this 1 container of the grind left, and it was a little thin. But I used another staple that I've used before that made really good bark, and that was that blackened Saskatchewan from Traeger. So I mixed some of the blackened Saskatchewan in with the grind, so that's why it looks a little coarser than it normally does. But I think it's going to be outstanding on this thing. All right, that pretty much gets it. We're going to pat it in for just a minute, let it set up a tad, and then we're going to flip it over and get the other side. Now my original plan was to run the beginner cook that's already preset into the Timberline 850 with the preset cooks. However, after I looked at it, I didn't really like that it started out at 165. I wanted it to start out more at 200. So I edited that cook. I'm starting it out at 200 degrees on super smoke until we get to an internal temperature in that brisket to 165 degrees. After we do that, an alarm will go off. I'm going to wrap it, and then it's going to go all the way up to 275 until we reach an internal temperature of 200 degrees, and then I'll begin to check it for tenderness at that point. I'm running oak pellets in here from Traeger, so it should be good. Let's go ahead and get it started. All right guys, we're up to temperature. We're gonna go ahead and get it on. I'm going point side up. We'll go just like that. And I've got a couple of pieces of mesquite that I'm gonna put underneath that brisket and just kind of mound it up a little bit. Might be too much there. That might be pretty good. That way that juices aren't going to puddle in there and kind of ruin my bark. I want to try to get as good a bark as I can on that brisket. Now I'm going to put my meat probe in there. We're going to go about halfway up, dead center of that little flat, and try to go just like that. And lastly, I've never done this before, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to put a little pan of water in there just to try to keep the environment moist in there, and that's going to be the way we're going to run it today. We'll see how it goes. I'll bring you back when we hit the internal temperature of 165 degrees. Hey guys, we're back. It's been about 6 hours, and we have just reached the internal temperature of 165 degrees. You know, this is one of those cooks where if you're a YouTube guy and you're a backyard barbecuer and you're doing a video, it seems like it takes forever to get done, and this is one of those days. I reached a stall at about 145 degrees internal temperature, and it just wouldn't move, so I kicked it up to 225 from 200 degrees, and that got it over that hump. Now we're at 165. So now we're going to take it off that Timberline 850 and we're going to wrap it in butcher paper. We're going to wrap it up in 2 layers of butcher paper. It looks really good right now. It's got a pretty good bark on it. We just need to get it really tender, so that's why we're going to wrap it. So let's do that now. I'm going to wrap it up, and this is going to be 1 layer, and then I've got another layer over here that we're going to wrap it up with. You want to get it really tight. Come over the top with it. Tuck it underneath. And then we're going to get another layer of that over here. Just like so. All right, so we've got it wrapped up in our double layer of butcher paper. Now we're going to get it back on the Traeger and kick the temperature up to 275, put it back on, and we're going to go until an internal temperature of about 200 degrees. Once we reach that temperature, then it's just about getting it probe tender. I'm going to stick that thermopin in it and see how tender it is, and we're going to go until I like it as far as the tenderness goes. So once we reach that point, we'll come back and I'll show you the results of our cook. We've been going about 11 hours today, and I'm ready to get this thing over with. So we're going straight into it. I'm fixing to see it. You're fixing to see it at the same time as I do. So this is how we're going to do it. I wrapped it in butcher paper, and I wrapped it at 165 degrees internal temperature, and then put it back on the Timberline 850. I cranked it up to 275, but then shortly after I cranked it up to 300, just because this thing was taking forever. And so this cook reinforces what I have said earlier in previous videos, which is the higher grade brisket that you get, the less time it takes to cook. This is a select brisket. A lot less fat inside this brisket than other grades, and it took a lot longer, and that's just my experience so far. So, but regardless, after we wrapped it, kicked it up to 300 degrees, total cook time was about 11 hours. So here it is. Let's unwrap it. But again, I don't expect it to be as tender as some of the other briskets that I've done. But again, guys, look at that smoke ring. Pretty nice. Go ahead and get one more slice on it, and then we'll see what the pull test is like. Got a little fold on it. Again, this is a select brisket. Nice little pull. Not too bad. I've had better, but again, we got to see what our expectations are. Let's give it a taste test and see how it tastes. As far as the flavor goes, that's spot on. Those rubs from Whiskey Bent Barbecue, perfect. I will say that the briskets that I've cooked in the past, recently, were moister than this one is, but they were, you're talking about Snake River Farms Wagyu type briskets. This is a select brisket. It's not even choice. So really happy with this thing so far. Let's separate this point from this flat and then see what the point looks like. So here's the point. Nice smoke ring on that. Let's get us a piece of this. And this is really my favorite part. Again, the flavor is spot on. Tenderness could be just a tad better, but again, you got to remember what you're paying for. This is a select, not a Wagyu, not a prime, not even a choice. So all in all, with everything considered, I'm very happy with this cook, no doubt about it, and I would definitely do it again. Lessons learned: make sure that your expectations match the grade of meat that you get, and I think you're going to be satisfied as long as you use the proper techniques to cook it. So I hope this was helpful. Give me a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel, and until next time, we'll be piddling. Hey guys, Smitty here with Just Piddlin Barbecue. Today we're going to do a select brisket. Timberline 850.